This is episode 8, entitled Rest and Play, Buddhism, Manga, and Saviour of Kittens. I'll confess, I love manga, and I'm not ashamed. Hello world, welcome to the show where we work, rest, and play. This is where we dissect, decipher, and demystify people's work and their lives outside of work. I'm Dan, your host, and welcome to episode 8. Life is not just about work, nor should it be. And so we move on to rest and play, where we explore how we can recharge and have a bit of fun in spite of the daily hustle and bustle of our lives. And so we continue to chat with Justin. And after having dissected his work life in the previous 2 episodes, we shall now find out what a successful human resources manager gets up to rest and play. We dive into a whole smorgasbord of things, such as pursuing startup venture ideas on the side, Justin's reasons for wanting to make a lot of money, Buddhism and spirituality, the benefits of meditation, manga versus anime and some of his favorites, how he ended up raising 3 kittens, and that's just to mention a few. And just before we get into the episode, I should also mention this segment of the interview was done over Skype, hence the difference in sound quality. It's not fantastic, but I hope it's okay. Alrighty, here we go. And so, hopefully this will inspirate onto episode 8. Yeah, so inspirate isn't a real word, but hey, friends. As you guys are aware, for those of you who listened to the previous episodes, we got through work, so we shall transition to rest. Just before we do, as I like to do sometimes with our guests, I like to do a bit of a work/rest pit stop, if you like. So Justin, we'll just jump right into it, mate. So I sort of wanted to ask, and you've sort of hinted at this stuff. So this pit stop, we'll keep it brief. Just want to give the listeners an idea of sort of what's going through your head these days. And you have hinted at this type of stuff, so I thought I might as well just bring it up. And the question is, obviously you've got your day job, but are there any projects or ventures that you are currently pursuing on the side at all?
So I guess that's a great question.
I thought you might like this one.
So there are plenty of things that I'm thinking about pursuing.
But what about right now? We'll go into any planned ones, but is there anything right now that you're digging your claws into, so to speak?
So yeah. So I guess so. So I'm working on a business plan right now, for a startup idea.
Oh, wow.
For a small business. I guess there's a couple of things we're working on. So, first is this business plan that I want to be able to pitch, at like an incubator.
Wow.
I think it's coming up next month. Well, we'll see how that goes. The idea is basically...
You don't need to reveal too much at this stage if you want to keep it under the wraps. Obviously, you mentioned
okay.
Probably potentially a what's the word that it's not confidential, it's commercially sensitive. So obviously, these startup ideas, you want to be first to market and you don't want to reveal too much at this stage. So, but I guess the main point is, wow, you are on the side, have been working on a business plan for a startup.
That's correct. So that's one thing that I guess I'm currently doing on the side that helps. I guess that's fun. I guess.
Cool.
What did you call it? The pit stop?
Yeah. So I sort of put this here because generally people will do these things on the side for fun or out of interest or et cetera, et cetera. So yeah. Cool. And what's the second thing?
So, actually my wife, she's working on a partnership for a private clinic, and I spend a lot of time talking to her about that and kind of looking at the business perspective. Mm-hmm. So my wife's a doctor, and so She's a brilliant doctor, actually, or she's just a brilliant person, and she's a very skilled doctor.
Lucky you.
Yeah, no, it's kind of amazing how brilliant she is, because like we're going through finances, looking at numbers, and I realize she plots graphs on this whiteboard that we have at home, and I'm thinking to myself, shoot, how come I didn't think of that?
What are you plotting graphs?
Yes, I mean, like, meanwhile, I'm like on Excel, plotting in numbers and trying to figure out, like, break-even points and where do we need to be able to, suffice and, be sustainable. Meanwhile, she just pulls up a whiteboard, a little marker, and starts plotting numbers. And the next thing you know, she has this graph that depicts everything that I'm trying to do in Excel for like 20 minutes. She does it in 2 minutes on the whiteboard.
Wow.
I'm just thinking, I hate her. Even in business, she's better than me.
Wow. I mean, obviously, a lot of doctors are super smart, so...
Actually, she always tells me, to be a surgeon or, some sort of plastic surgeon or surgeon, you just have to be able to memorize really well. I'm like, I don't know if that's really the case, but...
Interesting. Actually, yeah, we actually delve into that topic a little bit with one of our previous guests called Sunny. So if anyone wants to check that out, that is around episode 13. But back to here. So when you say the second thing, what is that specifically?
So I don't know, I guess if it's fun or anything, but something that we're doing on the side is just deciding whether or not to get into a partnership with this private clinic.
Oh, right.
So that in of itself is a huge project. So I mean, do you want to invest for equity?
Wow.
Or do you not want to? And if you do, well, what is the return on investment? Right? And trying to figure out all of those pieces out. I never thought, I've never had my own business, so, and even if I have my MBA, it's totally different than when you're starting to actually go through the process and you realize, every business is probably a little bit different. And every business owner's mentality is drastically different. So a business that started 15 years ago, kind of like from a partnership of two friends. There is no lengthy contract with every possible clause and every possible situation listed. It's more like a spit in a handshake, right?
Yeah.
Which, for modern day business people, you're like, hey, that's kind of risky.
But that's interesting. So you actually essentially have two potential businesses sort of in the planning, that startup you mentioned, and this partnership for your wife.
Yeah, kind of. It's more like one affects us as, a married couple. I guess they both do technically, but one is like, I want to do for fun. The other one is, this is our life that's going to be contingent upon it.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. So lots of changes, imminent, so to speak, one way or the other. Wow. So you mentioned your MBA. So doing, obviously, I mean, you've gone as far as about to pitch an idea, which is pretty amazing, I think. Now, when you did your MBA many years ago, did you always want to pursue something like a startup or a business, or was that the reason you did the MBA, or what was your motivation there for the MBA?
Yeah, so the motivation for the MBA was I was doing, I think I mentioned in our previous session, but I was doing nonprofit work. And
right.
The way nonprofits work is that you can be a case manager, you can kind of get to a certain level and work there forever.
That's right, yes.
Right, unless you have a higher degree, you can't really do anything else. So I didn't want to get pigeonholed as a social worker, so I went for an MBA, and I thought, wow, I can always get into sustainable development or, any sort of business, because essentially any nonprofit is a small business or a big business with kind of an altruistic cause usually.
So this, sorry to jump in there. So this pursuing startups, this obviously was something that you started thinking about. Was that something when you arrived in Korea, or was that a much more recent development in your mind?
No. So the thought was always, towards grad school, actually, I got into the idea of a startup. And what happened was, I've always wanted to, here, let me backtrack. So the reason why I want to do startups, and this sounds totally ridiculous, is because I want to make a lot of money. And I just talked to a friend of mine, and he was actually in a really big pharma startup, and the company right now is bankrupt, even though they were valued at like close to, I don't know, so like 300 million or something in the first year.
Sorry, when you said pharma startup, you mean in the pharmaceuticals pharma?
That's correct, yeah, pharmaceutical startup. And so, and he was telling me, we just had dinner with him, and he was like, his whole thing is he's very risky, and he wanted the experience of being in a startup, but he comes from like large, big multinational companies, and you know, he just got really tired of that lifestyle. So we're having dinner, and he's kind of joking about it, but not. And he's like, yeah, so my company is going bankrupt. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. And he's like, literally kind of like, yeah. Like, He's like, yeah, but we're still trying to get money. I'm still working, and I just lost, basically right now my equity is worth nothing. And he took a huge pay cut to go to the startup.
Right.
And so I'm like, man.
So it's obviously very high risk, high reward.
But the thing is, he wanted learning. He wanted the experience. I'm like, I bet you're learning a lot. He's like, oh, I'm learning more than I ever expected.
Yeah.
So I go on to see that, you know, kind of jokingly, because I know startups are very, you know, it's like he's like, only out of 100 startups, maybe one might make it.
Yeah.
So I joke about that, but you know, the reason why I want to get into startups is because I want to make a lot of money. But the reason why I want to make a lot of money is so that, you know, I can give it to causes that I feel strong about. I don't really care about having a lot of money, because the reality is I don't need a lot of money. Just I need enough money for my family and to survive and to live comfortably. Like me and my wife, neither of us are very luxurious, you know, as long as we have enough for like soju, few bottles, you know, a couple of meals a week.
Soju is one of the staple alcoholic drinks in Korea,
and it's cheap.
Yes, it's very cheap. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not an alcoholic. We're not alcoholics, but we enjoy it. So my point being is, like, working for a multinational company, even a really big one, unless you're on the executive level or the C level, it's really difficult to make when I say a lot of money, like I'm talking about millions, right? Because there's a lot of causes that I feel strong I want to be able to donate to. And so I realized at some point, like, no matter how long I work for a corporation, there's going to be a cap. And the only way to break that cap actually is to do your own thing. And so that's the reason why, you know, right now I want to go through the learning experience of going through a startup. If it's successful, that's amazing. If it's not, well, what can I do that's a low risk, or at least low startup cost, so I can get that experience, learn, and then try again.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've met at least a couple of people who have been involved in startups, and that generally seems to be the overall concept, if you like. You keep learning, you keep trying until eventually, hopefully, something sticks and away you go.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. No, but that's really interesting how you say, because you hear a lot of people who frown upon people who want to earn a lot of money. They say, oh, that's greedy and blah, 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 blah. But in fact, money is a tool, and in order to be able to do a lot of good in this world, you need the money to be able to fund any sort of good initiative one way or the other. So,
I mean, yeah, actually, it's really funny, right? Coming from the nonprofit sector, like, I mean, I think I used to feel that way too, like money is evil.
Yeah.
But the reality to life.
I used to think like that too.
Yeah, it's like your nonprofit can't run without money, because you wouldn't work here. Even if your paycheck is minimal, you wouldn't be here if you weren't making any money. Like, so if this nonprofit can't sustain itself or sustain its development and growth so it can help spread its cause, well, then I don't know where you're living, but you're not living in reality. Actually, there was a vice president at this toy company, like this really global known toy company. He started this charity within the company where they would donate money to foundations that supported kids with AIDS.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, he spent a lot of time, but the cool part about this is he could pull board members from the executive team of the company. And on top of that, the company helped fund this, like, nonprofit within the organization. A, because, it's for kids and that's what they do, but B, also because I'm sure it's a tax write-off for them.
That's a win-win.
It's a win-win. But the thing is, I spoke to him, kind of interviewed him similar to like what you're doing to me, and I just asked him, like, so how did you do this? And, how's it been so successful? How did you convince everybody? And he was so clear. He's like, like, there are people on my team that, are very actually everybody on my team is very strong at business. They understand how everything works, because they're all executives, right? But he said, like, in nonprofits, you need to have a good balance. You need to have people that are very ideal, that, they're bleeding hearts, that they care about the mission so much they want to see it successful. But you also need to have people that understand how business works. If you have either extreme, like, so if you have very business-minded people that are all about, just making the numbers, then you're going to lose the cause of that nonprofit. On the flip side, if you have, like, bleeding hearts that are so passionate about the cause but don't really understand the business world and how money works, then it's going to fail because it can't sustain itself. So he said you need to have a combination of both of those in order to be successful.
Wow, that's great. Obviously a very level-headed, realistic approach to the whole thing.
Yeah, that was eye-opening. I was like, oh, so you need money.
yeah, which is one key bit many people often forget about. But good on you, mate. That's really, really good. It's really inspiring that guys like yourself are going into these things with good intentions.
Well, I mean, the guy actually was HIV positive. And he was VP of finance for this company in the States. And so, he was in a position where he personally felt strong about this, right? So he was kind of the idealist, but he's a finance vice president for this company. So he had, like, a really good balance. But when he picked his team, he realized, some people are in it just because it's another thing they can kind of put on their resume, and because they want to feel like they're doing a charitable cause, but they don't care. But then you have to have a balance of people, not just the individual, but of your team.
Wow, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, there's this stuff that you're looking into, the startup and the partnership and all the things that come around that obviously will definitely keep you busy throughout the work week, so to speak.
Yeah, then we have to hang out with you, and that takes time.
Exactly. And you still managed to do it very well. At the beginning of our session today, you mentioned you've got a whole bunch of other ideas that are swirling around in your mind. So I'm guessing that there are other potential startup ideas that are just brewing. Would that be a right assumption?
Yeah. So actually, moving to Korea from the States, it threw everything off the table, because the way I look at an idea is, and whether it's good or not, I'll tell you, right? Time will tell. But the way I look at ideas is, I look at the people and how people are living, and I think, well, what things would help create more value to these people's lives? Or what are the issues everybody is facing? Or what are the patterns that, after a while talking to a lot of people or just kind of sitting and watching, you start seeing patterns. Based on those patterns, what things are people doing that would fall in the bucket of, like, waste? How can we improve that? Or just, you can't do that without actually getting to know that culture, those people. And so, like, moving to Korea, it's literally a completely different culture, different people, different way of life. So it's taken about a year to actually understand, like, what's going on over here and how people live and what are the tendencies. And I think now I'm starting to see different patterns and how people live. And, as an expat, I can see, like, some of the frustrations that expats are having. I can't totally see into like the minds of local Koreans, but I can see trends, things that we're doing in the States that work really well. That's not happening here. But again, I wouldn't have been able to point that out or see these things unless I actually lived here and engage. And if I wasn't engaging with like people and just asking a lot of questions. Actually, I ask a lot of questions typically, just to understand people. And, that's how I formulate ideas, because otherwise I don't have like a, I want to create a networking device that brings college students together and it's going to be amazing. I'm not that brilliant. I think I'm very practical and, those are the type of ideas that I have. It's just like, what things in our day-to-day life could we improve? What things would bring value to people and help people's like livelihood? What tweaks can we make that people aren't doing for whatever reason? And why aren't they doing it? And then based on those, I think like, I wonder if we can build a business idea around this. Is there a way we can create something that benefits everyone? It's self-sustainable. Maybe we can make some money on top of that. And then, just put it out there so that it creates value for everybody. So I guess I'm not going to be a quick wealthy. I'm not going to, I mentioned I want to make a lot of money. I imagine based on the way I live and think, it's not going to be very quickly.
I don't know. Like I said, you are insightful, and I have heard some of your ideas over a soju or three, and I have to say some of them are really, really good.
Your wife might not agree.
Well, everyone's got their own opinions on these types of stuff, but seriously, I think I have high hopes for you, Justin. Put it that way.
Thank you very much. Coming from you, it means a lot. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, right. Whatever. You just need a bit of luck and a crapload of persistence and determination, I think, with these startup things. Now, good on you. Seriously, that is fantastic. We will go right into rest now. I really liked that little pit stop. Super interesting. But moving on to rest, we'll sort of change the tone a little bit. And these are a couple of questions that I personally find very interesting, and I like to ask people this often. And so I'll ask it here again. Roughly how many hours of sleep do you normally get every night, Justin?
Oh.
Obviously amidst your busy schedule.
Yeah, no, I think nowadays, I get maybe anywhere from 5 to 7 hours of sleep, probably.
Does it tend to fall closer to the 5 or the 7 side of the scale?
I guess it's closer to the 5.
Wow.
5 hours of sleep? 5 to 6 hours of sleep, I guess.
So how do you feel after 5 to 6 hours of sleep?
Oh, fine. So I'm accustomed to sleeping like maybe 3 to 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think like when I was in college, like my undergrad, I was playing college sports and I was trying to study. And so like I was sleeping maybe 4 hours. It's actually really funny from high school to college. Like high school, you're just a kid, you don't care, you sleep, whatever. But then when I got to college, homework was actually pretty hard. Like studies were a lot more intense. And so literally because of the lack of sleep I was getting, and I know it's lack of sleep, somehow I trained myself to be able to function off of like 3 or 4 hours. And plus I lived in New York City. So so it's like, come
city
on.
that never sleeps, right?
That's right. And so there were actually times where I would fall asleep in an elevator for like 30 seconds.
What? While standing?
Yeah, while standing.
No way.
Or like I would purposely put myself in the front of the class so that I wouldn't fall asleep. I would still fall asleep, but
what the? Wow. Okay. And then you've just essentially acclimatized to that amount of sleep.
Yeah. So I think I'm fine. Like after 5 hours, I'm good. I can function normal. But everybody's different. I just don't understand the people that have to sleep like 8 to 10 hours, that totally throws me off. Like, how? Like, well, how do you sleep that much?
I would love to be able to sleep 8 to 10 hours a day, but unfortunately, don't have that luxury. What is it? So you don't need coffee, caffeine, or do you naps throughout the day to be able to stay alert?
Yeah, so I don't know if I need it, but I do drink coffee.
Right.
That helps. But when I do get tired, I mean, I'll confess, I'll be the first one to pop over like a sugar-free energy drink and have no qualms about it. Like back in college again, like it got to the point where coffee didn't work on me, energy drinks didn't work on me. Nothing really worked. So I just kind of got used to it. Usually it's more like I have a big test tomorrow. I can't sleep. So the pressure keeps me awake. But nowadays it's coffee in the morning, coffee in the afternoon. And if I feel a little, foggy, pop over and grab an energy drink. Not healthy, and I don't advise it for any of your listeners. But some people, this is how we live.
Oh, that's right. Wow. Gee, so do you strive to sleep X number of hours? Like if you're sleeping 5 to 6 hours a day, are you telling yourself, I should be sleeping 6 to 7, or sounds like you're pretty content with just sleeping the 5 to 6 hours?
Yeah, I'm 5 and 6. Again, I think everybody's sleeping cycle is different, yeah, and the amount of rest they need. But for me, 5 to 6 is plenty, more than enough.
Wow, does that vary between weekdays and weeknights in terms of the amount of sleep you're sleeping?
Yeah, so when I hang out with Daniel, sometimes we get
Yours
home
truly?
late. That's right. Sometimes, and we have something the next day, then my sleep schedule gets a little bit smaller. Maybe it's like, 3 to 4 hours.
Wow. You're a machine, mate.
No. But as I get older, it's clear, like, we talked about this before, but I'm really fortunate. I don't get hangovers too much, so.
I hate you for that.
And I'm not implying that when I hang out with you, we drink, at all or a lot, but I don't get hangovers. So usually I'm okay, but as I get older, I notice like my body's not, recovering as quickly. So I have to be a little bit more mindful.
Wow. Yep. You have some amazing mutant genes, and there are people out there who just do not get hangovers, and I envy you people extremely.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to go away more and more as I get older, so I'm sure it's the same for all those other people.
Okay, well, you can join my club then. That's fine. Right, cool. Okay, gee, that's really interesting about the sleep side. Alright, so then just in general, are there any daily or regular rituals that you live by or try to stick with? Say in order to recharge the batteries or for whatever reason?
Great question. And I think for me at least, spirituality is a big part of my life. So I'm Buddhist, and so I pray in morning, and I should pray every evening. I should. But that in of itself, so, I guess it's not meditation, but you can liken it to meditation. And I remember this one PhD guy came to one of our schools, and he spoke, and he had like 2 PhDs. He's from India, and he kept saying how everybody should meditate 20 minutes a day, and how that would have such a big impact on your life. And when he said that, I totally understood, because for me, my morning and evening prayers were periods of time where I can really self-reflect and basically re-energize and re-empower myself internally or spiritually, so that I can overcome and face and deal with whatever's in front of me, in my day to day, and stay motivated and stay kind of goal focused. So that's definitely one foundational thing that I carry with me.
That's interesting. I've got this meditation thing actually interested me quite a lot for a while, and I have tried it quite a lot in the past, in the recent past. It's really interesting though when you could relate, and you can essentially you can definitely vouch for the positive effects of prayer and or meditation. And could you just go over that again? So what you're saying is through this prayer and meditation, whether you do it every morning or morning and evening, you're saying it helps you focus? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So, it's called chanting. We have Westerners call it a mantra. Okay. So we have a mantra that we chant. And, I guess, is it okay to get into like philosophical / religious talk with you?
Yes,
okay.
Please. Yes, please.
So the Buddhism I practice, it's, called Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism. And fundamentally, the belief is that within every single person, everybody has this Buddha nature. And when you think of Buddha, you think of the little fat tubby guy. But actually this Buddha nature is this pot, this reservoir of like unlimited compassion, strength, wisdom, everything you need to overcome anything that you're going through in your life. And fundamentally, we're all striving to become happy, but happy, not superficially happy, because happiness can take on so many different forms, but we strive for this absolute happiness. And this happiness is, well, how do we really develop and polish ourselves to the best us we can be? So from the perspective of Buddhism, you hear the word karma, right? And karma is actually just an let's narrow it down. So the idea of cause and effect. You do something stupid, or you punch somebody in the face, they're going to punch you back. Okay, your cause, boom, you punch somebody, effect, boom. Or you break the law, you're probably going to get in trouble for it. Even if you don't get caught there, or you cheat on your taxes, even if you don't get caught that year, you probably will get caught down the road. Cause and effect. Not all causes are bad though, and actually causes aren't good or bad, it's just is, right? So it's kind of how you choose to live your life. So you are Daniel, who you are today, based on every cause, and a cause is every thought, action, or deed, or any word, thought, anything you've said, done, or even thought. Those are all causes. Every single cause that you've made in your life has brought you to who you are today. There is no denying that. And any person you want to be in the future, or what you want to change, or whatever the case, is based on every cause you make today. So, underlying that, anybody can change. There's nothing that could stop you from that. It's just based on our own inner strength, the ability to do that. And now if you take all those causes, not just within this life, because Buddhism says life is eternal, and you kind of go to the pre-Daniel was born in Australia. Oh, I don't know if you're born in Australia, but
Yes, I was. Yep.
You are, okay. And you go kind of eternally, like lifetimes ago, and you take all of those causes and you accumulate that. We call that karma. Every person carries these causes that we've created in our past, and we, to the degree that we'd say the parents that you're born with, the circumstance that you're born with, everything, the situation you're in, that's all based on karma. And you can't necessarily control or dictate how you've lived up until then. We look at that as like saying, okay, well, if these are the circumstances you've been born with, and these are all causes based on causes in your past life or whatever the situation, well, there are also opportunities for you to overcome and to challenge. Because you can change your karma. So then if that's the case, you look at life today and you're like, gosh, I'm having a hard time finding a job, or, my girl, she's not treating me nicely, or my boss is horrible to me. Well, then based on every cause that you've made, this is the situation you're in today, that's an opportunity to change it. And when you change it, or when you challenge these obstacles, you actually grow from it. And if you're growing, you're becoming stronger. And if, this is all here. I'm going way too deep, and I'm so sorry.
No, this is good. No, this is good. Keep going.
So basically, every challenge you're faced with it's an opportunity to overcome, so you can grow, so that you can become that best Daniel you could be.
And I actually personally, not necessarily affiliated to any specific religion at this point in time, so to speak, but I really love the concepts that are in Buddhism, which tend to often be very common across the major religions, as far as I know anyway. Cheers for that, Justin. I would love to go even deeper into this stuff, but in the interest of time, but just to bring it back just a notch, you mentioned for the listeners who want to find out a little bit more, what branch of Buddhism did you say this was? I missed
yeah. So it's Nichiren Buddhism, but if they go to,
how do you spell that?
you can actually look up Soka Gakkai, which is an organization I'm part of, and it's a worldwide organization.
Uh-huh.
So SOKA.
Yep.
GAKKAI.
Yep.
Soka Gakkai. And I think if they look up sgi.org, they can.
SGI. I'll put this stuff in the show notes, guys, so you can look that up via the website. But thanks for that, Justin. I will include that in because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who want to look that up a little bit more. So I guess want to just bring it back to the meditation side. I guess where I'm particularly interested in is I'm curious as to how you personally feel how meditation benefits you in your day-to-day life. Because for me personally, when I did, and it may be because I just didn't stick with it for long enough, how does that positively benefit your life?
So if you kind of summarize all that other stuff I just told you.
Yep.
So chanting, like kind of sitting down and going in front of my little prayer, my shrine and chanting, it grounds me in the sense where it reminds me like, sometimes it takes this kind of effort to realize like, oh shoot, that's right. I asked for this. I wanted to develop and grow. I want to have a lot of money so that I can help more people and kind of support these causes. So even though I'm struggling right now, actually this is one tiny step to get to that next place I need to be. So in that sense, it totally shows me a bigger picture of my life. Not it, but literally that kind of reflection and that chanting. And it helps ground me, recenter me so that I'm like, okay, that's right. I can do this. Versus like, oh, this is hopeless. I can't do this. Oh my gosh, all these financial issues that are about to come. What are we going to do? Don't get me wrong. I definitely go through that too. But in the morning, being able to ground myself in the afternoon, in the evening, being able to do that again, to have that appreciation even that I can do that. Because there's so many people in the world that get so caught up in the moment and that moment takes over their life. And then when they finally realize like, oh shoot, why am I like stuck in this moment? It's like 5 years have passed. But I have an opportunity to tap into that, that type of Buddha nature every day, every morning and evening to like refresh myself.
Wow. So if I was to put it in some different words, it essentially sort of lets you take a step back and remind yourself, I guess essentially on your priorities and your why as to your reasons for what you're doing and just essentially refocusing your efforts and remembering the reasons for your efforts. And through that process, it helps motivate you because it reminds you that you need, you're going through the process towards a specific number of goals which you believe in, and you're reminding yourself that these are my goals, therefore I'm experiencing these and this is what I can do.
I guess on a very conscious level, yes, I can, on a non-conscious level, it makes me feel good.
Of course. And of course, also it's part of your spirituality. I can't even say it.
That's right. It's also part of my spirituality. It's a base, right?
Right. Very cool. I will include those notes that Justin mentioned in the show notes. So please, I'm sure this may just arouse more curiosity and create even more questions. So check that website out. Of course, it might not. If you want to ask Justin some questions, feel free to send them through to me, and I'm happy to pass them on and create some dialogue that way as well. So thank you, Justin, for sharing that. We'll move on to the play side of things from here. But just before we do, are there any other rituals or regular things that you like to stick to recharge your batteries in addition to what you've just mentioned?
Yeah, it's funny. I saw this Facebook post the other day, and it was like the difference between men and women. And
Uh-oh.
Anyway, one of them was like recharge, and the article was written for women to understand men. And basically the point of the article was men sometimes just like to check out. Like literally just check out, and there's no like, they're not trying to be mean or rude or, but sometimes men just need to check out to recharge. And I'm sure it's the same for women too, but when I read it, I'm like, yeah, wow, that's true.
It just like zone out.
Yeah.
And do nothing.
I mean, so my zoning out, maybe I'll like watch a movie, or I'll watch, some TV here and there, or I'll start reading articles on business. And even to that degree, it's still zoning out, because it's just taking my mind off of things that are maybe overwhelming.
Right.
And just zoning out. So it sounds really funny, but like, it's not a ritual. But I mean, like, once a week, I'll confess, I like manga, right? So I like anime, I like manga, I'm not ashamed. I hate the fact that I have to say that. But, once a week, I'll make sure I watch the episodes that I'm following. And for me, that's kind of like a mini recharge, It's a very weak recharge, but it's like, hey, it's cool. Okay.
There are plenty of people out there who love manga. I love it when I watch it. I just struggle to find the time, or I'm just very disorganized. But what manga are you watching now?
Oh, we don't need to go into that.
No, please.
Really? You really want to go into that?
Yes. There some of the listeners love manga, and they're always on the lookout for new stuff to check out. So come on, Justin, spill the beans.
But it's not. So it's like One Piece, which is like a never-ending manga.
Sorry, was that the title? One Piece?
Yeah, One Piece. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like, it's been around longer than Dragon Ball. Just keep that in mind.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And it's still going.
It's still going. It's crazy.
Whoa.
And then, or maybe not Dragon Ball. It's longer than Naruto, but I think Naruto now has like his son it's Boruto. And that's another one I'm following.
Okay. So
just give me titles. I'll give you titles. We don't need explanation.
Yeah, send me titles. As you obviously have Japanese background, so you're essentially an insider when it comes to
no,
manga.
I'm not. Actually, there's a lot more Westerners that I've met that know more about manga than I do.
Yeah? Wow.
Yeah. I'm always like, wow, that's a good one. Let me go look it up.
Okay, Justin's going to send me a list of, I'll call it recommendations.
No. We'll call it Justin's favorite. That's it.
Okay, Justin. Okay, do you have an all-time favorite manga? To get off the manga topic, is the last manga question.
An all-time favorite.
Or one or two, or...
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. I really, there's this one called Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, and the series is over, but just the idea, like the person it's about alchemy, basically.
Right.
There's a storyline behind it and everything, but I just really like the narrations, and the storyline was just so interesting. It's this idea that these two kids who lost their mother, they try to bring her back to life, and as a result, they pay this price of losing their, it's a manga, losing their limbs, and one of them lost their body, whatever. But just, I don't know, for some reason that one was really struck me.
Do you read the mangas or do you watch them?
I do both. So usually the manga comes out before the anime. So you can get ahead by reading the manga, and then you watch the anime, and you're like, oh, that's what it looks like.
So that's the technical terminology. Is that the technical terminology? Manga is the comic that you read, and anime is the movie version.
That's right.
Okay. Pardon my ignorance.
No, that's not a bad thing. It's okay. Pardon my knowledge.
All right. Okay. I'll definitely get that list of recommendations from you. But thank you for that. All right. Let's move on to the play section. You've mentioned some of the rituals and stuff that you like to indulge in. Are there any specific hobbies or special interests, so to speak, that you pursue in addition to this stuff?
Oh.
Doesn't have to be, because it sounds like you're already involved in quite a lot.
We have 3 cats.
Ah, 3 cats, of course.
That's right, 3 kittens. And I think I guess that's a ritual because I have to clean a litter box every morning and feed them and twice a day.
That's a lot of work, 3 kittens. How old are the kittens?
I think 2 of them are about 4 or 5 months. One of them is almost 2 years, I think.
And the good-natured side of you was once again revealed when you ended up adopting, so to speak, one of the kittens. Can you just go through that story briefly? I love this story. Go ahead.
So actually, all 3 of the kittens, cats are they're all stray cats. Mm-hmm. The first one we actually picked up when we were in Michigan. He was found or abandoned in like a gutter in the middle of winter, and it snows a lot out there. And so somebody found him, posted something on Craigslist. Apparently like 300 some people emailed this girl, but I guess my story stuck out. Mm-hmm. So that's how we got the first one, Nick. Then we moved to Korea. So
hang on a second. What do you mean your story stuck out? What was this, like a application or something?
No.
You have to state why you wanted the cat? Was that right?
Yeah, so exactly. She kind of was like hearing people's stories, right? Oh. And so my story was basically my wife at the time was struggling a bit. Just being in Michigan, where it's always kind of cold.
Right.
And, her job was really stressful, so she was having a hard time. And so it's not like we were going to have kids anytime soon. We weren't even married yet. And so it was around Christmas time. I thought, it'd be great. I bet you a cat or some pet would really cheer her up. So I tried to get a dog, but our landlord said no dogs, even though the lease had said it was okay. Totally. So I'm like, what about a cat? She's like, I guess a cat's okay. But cats don't mate during the wintertime, right? So there's no kittens.
Oh, right.
So you go to the pet stores, you go everywhere, you can't even buy a kitten locally. And so, this one post came up about a kitten, and so I shared how, my wife's having a difficult time, we both haven't had pets, but, we really want to take care. We also think it'd be great practice for having kids. A kitten is nothing like a kid from what I understand. So, but it worked. And so she gave us a kitten, and
good on you.
Yeah, so we brought him to Korea. Then about 8 months later, my wife started thinking like, I think Nick needs a friend. And so it's like, I want another kitten. So I'm like, if you take care of that, you can go ahead and get it. Like, it's all you. I'm fine with it, but you are responsible. So she does research, and then about 3 months later, we end up getting a kitten in Korea. And again, another stray. But from a bit distance. So we pick up this kitten, really cute cat. We call her Bella. And then the 2 of them, they're hissing at each other. And then finally, about 3 days later, they're getting along. And then,
hang on, sorry. When you say it was another stray, what do you mean? Did you pick the second one off the?
No. So there's a whole community in Korea that, like the people that will, foster kittens.
Oh, okay.
They find, and they're really protective of the kittens too. So you have to build a relationship with them. You have to get to know the people. And then if they think, okay, you're good enough, you have to fill out an application.
Oh, wow.
It's like it's a process. It's like literally adopting. And so, my wife took care of all of that. And then we went and picked up the kitten and met the owner. And actually the mother, I guess, the fosterer.
Right.
She came and visited the kitten today.
Oh, that's what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Because that confused the hell out of me when you said, the kitten's mum visited today. I was like, what?
Yeah. So, we still stay in touch with the young lady that found the kitten and, initially took care of her and, send pictures occasionally. So it's like literally forging ties, right?
Wow. What's the name of this? Do you know the name of this foster center?
It's in Korean, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I could get it for you.
Yeah, I actually might add that to the notes. If there's anyone in Korea who wants to, adopt a stray kitten, that's another great cause, helping out little animals. So I'll get that off you too. Interesting. Sure. Wow. So the first one's called Nick. The second one's called, did you say it was Bella?
Bella.
Yep. I keep forgetting.
And then, so we bring Bella home, and while our cats are acclimating with each other, my wife hears a cat outside crying. And this cat's literally for 3-4 nights, this cat's crying, like, really loud. It's not a cat, it's a kitten, but it's so loud. And so my wife's like, go look for him. I'm like, huh? Like, what?
As you do.
Like, literally, just neighborhood stray, it's crying. I'm like, okay. So the first try, I try the first time, I can't find this cat. I'm like, okay, I don't know. Honey, I'm sure it's fine. You know, just probably hungry, his mom's, whatever. And then, like, by the 4th night, still crying his heart out. And so my wife's like, find him! So literally, I go walk into the neighborhood and I find this kitten, like maybe 5 houses down, just sitting on a porch. I think, oh, maybe the owner just kicked him out because he's crying. He's so loud. Like, the fact that I can hear him that loud from our place, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And so I take a picture, come back. I'm like, honey, look. He looks fine. You know, they probably just kicked him out. She's like, no, bring him back. Like, what? Like, what? But it might be the owners. Well, if he's crying that much, then they're not taking care of him. Bring him back.
Whoa.
Okay. So I bring a towel, pick up the kitten. He's like scared.
Was there anyone at like in the house when you took the kitten?
Nobody was coming out to see if the kitten was okay.
Okay.
Like, it was literally like just on his porch, and it was an open front area, you know? So I was thinking, should I knock? I don't know. I can't speak Korean. So what if they're like, who are you? And so anyways, he brought the kitten back, and then, he was dirty, and he definitely had like issues with like bowel movements. Got him cleaned up, gave him a bath. Just like mud came out of the sink. I was like, ooh.
Oh, and you then, mean that was like part of the bowel movements? Oh, the mud. Okay, the mud.
Both. But, no.
Okay.
So, whoa, that's too graphic. No. The dirt on his body, as a result of the dirt on his body being bathed, it was like mud in the sink.
Wow.
Yeah, not the poop.
No, right.
And then, got him set up in his own little section of our patio, separating from the other cats, and had him see the vet the next day, and the vet's like, yeah, he's constipated. I'm like, okay. And for the next 3 days, this cat couldn't poo. And so we finally got him up to health, and then took about 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, so, and I told my wife, once he gets healthy, let's give him up for adoption. Let's post him on that site, and let's see if somebody will adopt it. But let's get him healthy first. And then so about 2 weeks through, he's doing better. We're like, oh, just let the cats play with each other. They're fine. My wife starts, like, up until this point, my wife never even paid attention to this kitten. Just save him, bring him back, and that's it. I was, like, taking care of this cat. Then, 2 weeks after, she's like, oh, look, he's so cute. No, we have to keep him. I'm like, what do you mean we have to keep him? We're going to give him for adoption. We're not going to have 3 cats. Wow. He's like, he's part of the family now. I'm like, what are you you just started paying attention to him like 2 days ago. What are you talking about? So anyways, now we have 3 cats.
Wow, well done. Well done.
Oh, yeah, like I said, they poop a lot.
That's, well, it's for a good cause nevertheless. And yes, they are all super cute. And you're doing a great job taking care of them, that's for sure. Hey, so what happened to Bella, the second one? You said that was going to be your wife's full responsibility.
Oh no, they're all supposed to be my wife's.
Right.
Nick was supposed to be my wife's full responsibility. So I guess we share the responsibility, and like with any relationship, sometimes it's 50-50. More than often, it's more like 20-80. But given circumstances, maybe it'll switch over to 80-20. But
very generous of you, mate. Very generous. Good on you. And the name of the third one, what was it called?
We call him B. Just
B,
the letter
right.
B.
Does that have any meaning?
No, he just, maybe because he always cried because he's black, and it's like, it's just, when you look at him, you just imagine him saying, I'm B. You're like, okay, so you're B.
I think I know what you're talking about. Oh, fantastic. Good on you, mate. That's a beautiful story. Just to close off then, with, is there anything you like to do just for fun?
Yeah, people watch.
What do you mean, people watch? That can sound a bit creepy.
I enjoy stalking. No. So like, ever since I was young, I would go to the mall with my friends. Like,
Yep.
I always had girlfriends, not girlfriends, but friends that were I've always had girlfriends too, I guess, but I've always had friends that were girls.
Yep.
They'd take me shopping with them or whatever, but I just hang out outside. But I loved, like, just watching all the people go by and observe how are people interacting and, you know, what I can't usually hear, but just, I don't know. I just enjoy kind of observing how people are acting in their day to day.
Oh, is there a end in mind when you're doing, like, is there some objective where you just enjoy, it's more like, I guess it's like watching a movie or a television?
Or I guess it's kind of like trying to understand the situations. Like, I don't have the right answer, but just watching people interact and kind of guessing, I guess, or formulating, I wonder what's really going on over there, or like reading their facial expressions and based on that, how they're interacting. So people watching is actually something I enjoy doing. I don't think I do it too much now since I've gotten older, but that's definitely something.
Interesting. So I guess it's the human interaction side of things that seems to interest you.
It's kind of like vacation. I don't really care much for vacationing to look at sites or historical places. So the idea of vacationing for the sake of just traveling and seeing the world isn't exciting to me. But the sake of traveling and going to like the markets and eating like local food from like food carts, like drinking local beer, that's exciting to me. I think it's just the idea of just being around people, which I enjoy.
To me, that seems to, hence your interest in non-profits and helping people out, and even being a human resource manager, that all makes sense. Just it all seems to come together. You seem to really be interested in the I'll call it the human side of things. It's very cool.
Good observation.
I try, mate. I try. I try. Last formal question. Actually, no, the second last formal question. Just in general, and this can be career or personal, is there anyone you find to have been particularly inspirational for yourself? Doesn't have to be.
Yeah, no. You know, my parents, I think, my parents have been so incredible in my life, and I haven't even fully appreciated them until like the past, 5 or 6 years of my life. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember growing up, my dad was never home. He traveled a lot, so I was actually really angry at him. I hated him.
Right.
And my mom raised us, so naturally I adored my mom, and she had to work so hard, my dad worked, the money came in, my mom worked a little bit, but she was always there for us. And so when I got older, like in my late 20s, 30s, I started understanding what my dad was doing. So my dad, again, he works for a Buddhist organization. He travels all over the world. His whole thing is, how do I help encourage people? And my dad never talked to me about his work because, one, it's usually sensitive information about people's lives. And two, my dad just doesn't talk. He doesn't gloat or talk about hey, I do this great thing or anything. But I've met so many people literally across the states, and sometimes even internationally. They're like, oh, your dad, he encouraged me so much when I was struggling and yada, yada. So I think, nowadays I think, even though my dad drives me crazy, like he'll call me and he'll say, hey, can you write an email for me? I'm like, can you write an email? I'm like, what are you talking about? Or, hey, I just got this, this document. I don't know how to respond. I don't know how to type it out.
Is this an English thing? Or
it's a computer thing. It's a technology thing.
He's technology really thing, right?
Bad, yeah. But I have the greatest respect for him now. And I think wow, if I could live my life even just like a mere fraction of the way he lives his life, I'll feel so proud of myself. And then my mom, my mom, again, she's already an amazing woman, but the fact that, she had, back in 2010, she had a brain aneurysm.
Oh, no.
And, she should have died. It ruptured, and then 3 days later, we took her to the hospital. The fact that she made it 3 days later, we were able to take her to the hospital was amazing. But, she had to have surgery. It was microscopic surgery. And, just like watching her recover, and she, just seeing her attitude is always like, okay, it's going to be fine. Don't worry. Or, we're going to get through this. You'll see. Or I'll show you the power of faith. Don't worry. She's just amazing, an amazing woman. And it's funny because she was the one, she's kind of like the foundation for our family, who's held down everything, right? Like all the like managing the finances, the house, everything. And there's always so much stress built up, but she managed it so well. And after the aneurysm, the part of the brain that affected was like the critical thinking part of the brain. And so this kind of funny side effect, I guess, of it, or the results of it is she's totally carefree. Like she doesn't care like
anymore as much as she used to. Right.
And, I don't know if she's pretending or if this really just, the effect, but it's like, hey, Mom, so, you need to take care of the finances again at some point, probably. She's like, no, it's okay. Somebody else will. I'm like, huh? Like, what?
Wow. Well, so your mother, was it essentially a full recovery with that side effect, with the reduced, I guess I'll call it, sensitivity to critical thinking, or?
Yeah, so it's, health-wise, physically or physiologically, it's a full recovery.
Right.
In terms of effect, I think, the doctor was showing anytime anybody has this type of thing, they're susceptible to like strokes, which she had one while she was in ICU.
Wow.
But then she's not going to be able to move her left side of the body, and this is going to take like years and years and years to recover. But like literally 2 days later, she's like moving again. They're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow.
So like my mom literally is just, I don't believe in miracles per se, but she is like living proof of what what a determined spirit is able to accomplish, I guess. And, so it's a full recovery. Again, physiologically, the one piece that was affected is like this personality shift, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as time has progressed, she's gotten better and stronger and stronger, but it's not the same like mom that growing up where, it's like, Justin, what are you doing? Make sure you But, the interesting thing, so my mom practiced Buddhism her entire life.
Right.
And so it's kind of crazy. So you'll talk to her about something kind of random. Yeah. And she's kind of there, a little hazy. But the minute you start talking about something faith related, it's like she's solid.
What do you mean solid?
Like, she can, when you're talking, it's like it's like nothing, even like right after the operation, and she came home after like, a month and a half. Like she couldn't remember a lot of things, like numbers or dates. And like she thought for some reason, even though she knew it was like the present, she kept referring back to like 1997, like certain years that really struck her. But the minute the topic was around like Buddhism or faith, like, and she was trying to encourage somebody, it's like, boom. Like, wow, Mom.
Oh, it's like, it's all still there. It's all.
Yeah. It's like solid.
Wow.
So it's just amazing. Like when somebody is practicing so regularly or it's so ingrained to their like DNA, even an aneurysm or a stroke can't like phase it.
Wow. Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
That is absolutely amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now I can understand why you find your parents inspirational. That'll inspire anyone. Thank you for that. Look, last formal question for the segment, and I personally really like this question, and so I'm going to ask you here, as I ask all the other guests. If you could go back in time and chat with yourself 20 years ago, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, I wouldn't. So a precursor to that, I wouldn't change anything from my past, just because you change anything, I wouldn't be where I am today, and I'm happy.
Oh, and that's probably right in line with that whole cause and effect stuff you're talking about with the Buddhism stuff as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's things I would tell myself that I wouldn't listen to back then anyway. I would have been like, "You're an idiot. You know, stop going around dating girls and think you're like serious about them, and then leave them after however period and." Stop trying to fill your own void with other people to make yourself feel better about yourself. Or I wouldn't listen to myself back then, I'm sure. But
but I mean, you can only try. So I guess that's the spirit of the question. I mean, assuming irrespective of whether your 20 year younger self will actually listen. I should probably rephrase this question and say, what advice would you try to give yourself?
Yeah. Well, in that case, 20 years ago. I mean, being a very, in the concrete form, I would say, hey, put money aside in your retirement plan. Like, seriously, do it. Because I haven't.
I think that's most of us, mate.
It's like, damn, imagine if I just put aside just a little bit every day, I would have been like solid right now.
Yeah.
But I guess, and I apologize, but this is going to go kind of spiritual. I would, if anything, I would tell myself, hey, you should sit down and start praying now, start chanting now.
Did you start this a little bit later in life?
So I always did it on and off, like when I was a kid. My parents were very adamant about me practicing. Hey, come on, wake up, we're going to chant as a family. I'm like, oh. But I think in terms of seriously practicing, it wasn't until like, my mid-20s. So I'm a late bloomer, but I don't know, I guess if I told myself, I mean, people told me that back then too, so it didn't matter. So, so I wouldn't have listened to myself either. So I don't know. Like I said, there's nothing I could have done differently.
I'm still really interested in this, your spirituality side of things and I'll just briefly come back with this question in the sense that, do you see an alignment between the amount of practice, and I'll call it prayer or the chanting or the meditation. Do you see some alignment with that, the intensity or the frequency of that practice versus your emotional health or your physical health or or the amount of success, whether that be career or personal growth? Is that distinct, or is it? I'm curious what your thoughts are on that aspect.
So when you say like duration of practice, like how long I've been practicing for?
Oh, just any sort of correlation, and sort of where I'm coming from is often I'll hear people, and this includes a lot of celebrities out there, where meditation is definitely talked about and hyped about a lot in society today. What's that form of meditation called? Is it the tantric? The one that
isn't tantric like for sex?
Pardon me.
I don't know. I thought
no. There's a meditation way, like it's Jerry Seinfeld and all these other guys are into it. But yeah, but just to bring back, like, whether it can be anything, whether it's intensity, frequency, or how sincerely you're into it, or whatever it is. Do you see some sort of correlation there, or not?
There's definitely a correlation. But I think the act of trying to do it or to learn to do it in of itself is creating a huge cause for your life to move in that direction. Like in that direction, meaning like that direction of whatever it is that you're trying to challenge or overcome or feel or whatever that is. And I say that because like in Buddhism, at least we say there's 3 bases of our practice. It's faith, practice, and study.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So in order to develop faith in this kind of belief in yourself, in this Buddha nature, you need to practice and study. Practice is actually chant, right? And, go through the different activities so that you can develop and grow, spiritually. And then, study is actually studying the different teachings from Nichiren Daishonin, so you can try to deepen your understanding of this faith, right? So there's kind of like this piece. So I've met a lot of people who like they'll start practicing in Buddhism, and you know they'll chant and they'll get these incredible benefits. Benefits are just like another term for these good things that happen to them, where things change in the way they want. It's like, it's great. Yeah. It's like actual proof. At the same time, you know, I've seen those people also get very fanatical without really kind of deepening their understanding of the practice. It's just like, yeah, this is great. And then they just drop off.
Right.
That's it. Right? It's like, you know, you satisfy something and you're done. But to be able to live a philosophy, to live like Buddhism, it takes time and perseverance and, you know, persistence, because it's a practice. It's like, say, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to get big muscles, so I'm going to work out really hard today, you know, like for 8 hours until my muscles are bulging and my muscles tear, and like that's A, not realistic, and, you know, B, if you did that, you'd probably hurt yourself, right? Any type of practice in our own life. I mean, you were talking about rituals, but my daily rituals, what are they? Well, at some point those rituals had to start, right? Without that repetition and that practice of developing, for me, like my morning prayers, or even brushing your teeth when you're a kid, right? You didn't brush your teeth all the time, but through that consistency and that practice, then you started making that into a good habit that you do now as a ritual. So in terms of meditation, or in the case of my practice, it takes time to develop a consistency, but that's okay. Because sometimes we're consistent, sometimes we're not. Hey, that's life, and we're people. Kind of like, you know, sometimes I try to get to work all the time, or I try to sleep 6 hours a day every day, but sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. That's life. It's okay. Just get back on and try to get back to your routine. So in that sense, because we call, you know, our Buddhism a practice, the idea is that you're consistently working on it. There's no end, because there's no end to our lives, right? Like, we always want to continue growing and developing. There's no like, all right, that's it, I'm done, I'm happy. At least in my perspective, life is continuously developing, and there's always going to be new challenges or opportunities or obstacles that we can overcome to grow more. Our life, the way I see it, our capacities or our abilities as humans, as people, it's limitless. There's nothing we can't do. So we can always continuously improve or continuously grow. But again, that's just my perspective.
This is so interesting. You know, I'd love to talk more about this stuff with you, whether that be just on a personal level, or we could do another special on Buddhism, or I just want to ask this question just before we close this off. If I was to flip the question and say, how do you think your life would be different if you didn't practice the Buddhism that you practice? Just obviously it's speculation, but what do you think would be different for you?
Yeah, I think there's a clear pivot point in my life when I got into it and like sincerely, like of my own, you know, volition said, okay, I want to do this, or I'm going to try it, versus I really don't give any, I don't care.
Yep.
So when I was in New York for college, I pretty much wasn't practicing until like, you know, stressful situations came up where it's like, oh no, I got a test tomorrow. So I'd go to like the
temple?
The fire escape. The emergency fire. And I'd like chant there quietly because because I felt awkward. Like I was too ashamed to talk about it in front of my roommates.
Yep.
But I think towards my 4 years, I wasn't really practicing, going out to activities or meeting other members. And so I think at that point, I can imagine my life, like, you know, I was all about trying to buy nicer clothes so that I can look more fashionable. Nothing wrong with that. I was all about like, where can I get, you know, the highest paying job? Nothing wrong with that. But, you know, to a certain degree, everything was very external. It was for show. And I had this friend of mine, this girl back then, she would always say this, and it totally struck me, and or another time, but like there's a point when I hit like total depression and, or like I was depressed for like, like maybe 8-9 months, and I just wanted I was thinking of suicide and all this other stuff.
Oh my God.
But that point, this girl, she told me like way before that, she's like, Justin, you can be real. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I am real. Like, she's like, no, like, you can be real with me. It's okay. And I totally didn't understand her. And it took like 10 years later for me to like really understand what she meant. And so I can easily see myself at that point, you know, when I was towards graduating my undergrad the first time around, just becoming this very superficial, shallow guy, just probably sleeping around and not caring about, you know, what the after effect was of that, and drinking, you know, going crazy every weekend, having incredible, probably credit card debts too, because I was pretty bad at that point, versus kind of the person I am today. And even though I went through so many struggles and painful, like, life events through, you know, after that, kind of pivoting and going back to California, going to that school that I mentioned that, and I had my parents pressured me to go to a lot. Actually, it's so funny. I had a good friend who I met, towards the end of my high school years, who went to that school too. So we're about the same age. The second undergrad that I talked about before.
The Soka?
Yeah. And so he was like, when we met, you know, he's like, hey, Justin. He was so excited.
Wow.
I requested to be roommates with this guy because I knew him.
Ah.
And he's like, man, this is awesome. We're going to be roommates. I was like, no. Actually, I requested to be roommates with you. Like, what? Yeah, because I don't think I could really put up with anybody else. and like after like for the first 3 months, he's like, man, what happened to you? You became a dick. You became a dick in the past 3 years. 4 years. I don't know what New York did to you, but man, you're an asshole. I was like, I don't give a f***, don't bother me. So I could totally see the difference in my life trajectory at that point.
Right. So you're saying that pivotal moment happened while you attended Soka?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it kind of started with my parents who drove me crazy at the time, who I didn't really feel like, my dad's such a great guy or my mom's so wonderful. It felt more like, I can't believe I'm doing this for my dad. I can't believe, you know, my mom is backing him on this. What the hell kind of thing. But they literally pulled like that path and said, just go. Like, you don't even realize like what's going on in your life. Just go here. This will be a lot better for you. You'll see. That's kind of what was going on in their head, I'm sure.
Wow. So obviously there's a clear sort of transition. Can I call it pre-Soka and post?
Oh yeah. That's actually my roommate from New York. He told me after my first year at this university, he was like, I don't know what the hell happened to you or what's going on with you, but the Justin, I was like, don't be offended by this. Like, no, this isn't meant to be offended at all. But the Justin I knew from New York and the Justin from 1 year at this school, Soka, like, is completely different.
Wow.
The Justin, the Justin I lived with in New York, he was great. He was a lot of fun. I love him. I mean, you know, he's my best friend, yada, yada, yada. But this Justin from Soka, after 1 year, you're like, you're so much better. I was like, oh, was I that bad?
Whoa. Hang on, so then the New York Justin, was that much different to pre-New York Justin?
Pre-New York Justin was like a little idiot high school kid who didn't know anything.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's weird. Because I'm just curious whether it was New York that was the influence for New York Justin, let's say, or if it was just a progression of living that particular lifestyle.
I'm pretty sure it's living that lifestyle, and just me being from California, going to New York, being not, just trying to embrace everything I could about New York, and not to say New Yorkers are bad people or anything, but come on, New Yorkers are dicks, right? No offense to any New Yorkers, I'm kidding. I mean, but people are very straightforward. They say it as it is, and I love that about New Yorkers. That lifestyle, making money just to live there. Like, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. I'll live in a tiny little apartment and share it with people for the rest of my life in New York and go out Fridays and Saturdays and have a great time and wear overpriced clothing that I probably don't need to be running my credit card up with.
Very good. So interesting. Oh, geez, I'm glad I asked that question. Thank you so much, Justin. That's essentially it for the formal part of the formal, for want of a better word, of the questions. I just want to finish off with what I like to call rapid fire questions. And what this essentially is, just over 60 seconds, I'm just going to throw some random questions at you. And it's just for fun. So I just want you to just say the first thing that comes to mind. There's obviously no right or wrong answer with this stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's the spirit of it. So what I like to do is, this is exactly 60 seconds. So I've got a funky little timer I found off YouTube, which I use for this. Can you hear that?
I can hear. That's like intense pressure, man.
That's it, man. So you get the idea, right? So okay. What I'll do is I'll start this timer after I finish saying the first question. If no answer pops up in your head for the question, just say pass, and we'll just move to the next one. Next one. So this is purely for fun. You will not be judged for your responses.
You can judge me. It's okay. I have no problem with that.
Okay, here we go. The first question is, what movie did you really like?
Titanic.
What what song do you really like?
Pass.
If you could meet anyone in person, dead or alive, who would it be?
So many people. Einstein.
Alright, which celebrity do you find super hot?
What's her name? Black Widow from Marvels, whatever her name is.
Okay, Apple or Android?
Oh, Apple, unfortunately.
What do you love about this world?
There's a lot of improvement that can happen, and people are great.
Okay, usually the first thing you do in the morning?
Go pee.
The last thing you do at night?
Go pee.
Alright, what food do you really love?
Korean food.
Is there a divine creator?
I don't think so.
Hey, thank you so much, Justin. That was heaps of fun. Sorry, I've just dropped my lapel. I got overexcited with the rapid fire questions. But look, thanks so much, mate. Really, really enjoyed it. We'll have to continue talking to you about the Buddha stuff, and we'll keep tabs on how you go with your startup pitch. And, we're really keen to see how that goes.
If you don't hear anything about it, you don't need to ask any questions about it.
But best of luck anyway. I'm sure it'll be an awesome experience one way or the other.
Nope, thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was great.
And that's it for episode 8. A big thank you to Justin once again for being so generous with his time. Thank you very much, sir. In the next episode, we will be introducing a new guest, and to give you a little clue on what that's about, our next guest cuts code for a living. So stay tuned for that and check it out when you get a chance. Also, if you've been enjoying the episodes and you'd love to support the show, there is a way. You can become a patron via patreon.com. That is patreon.com. And you can find us by searching for We Work, Rest and Play, all one word, from the Patreon homepage. You'll gain a bunch of exclusive access and benefits, so definitely worth checking out. Every little bit of support is a huge help and goes a very long way in keeping this show alive. And of course, thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to the podcast via your favorite podcast app to make sure you automatically receive new episodes. And if and when you feel like it, would be great if you could spend a few seconds to leave a review to let me know what you think about the episode and the show. You can also refer to the website, weworkrestandplay.com, for the show notes, and looking forward to speaking with a brand new guest in the next episode. And so until then, live life, take care, and keep smiling. The intro and outro music is an extract from the track entitled Falling Down by the artist named Ryan Little, and is used in accordance with the Creative Commons Attribution License.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Further references can also be found in the show notes at www.weworkrestandplay.com.